This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, an open source non-ICO crypto project powered by community. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. That's TUSC.network. The Rob McNealy program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Hey, today I am talking to Jonathan Keim. He is with World Crypto Newswire, and we're going to talk about something that I like to talk about, and that's marketing.
So, hey, Rob,
yeah.
if you don't mind, actually, it's CryptoCurrencyWire.
Okay.
It'd probably be better to get that right at the beginning.
All right, All right, so just CryptoCurrencyWire?
That's correct.
No, okay, sorry about that. All right, well, we'll start over.
No worries.
Let's see. Today, we're talking to Jonathan Keim of CryptoCurrencyWire, and this is going to be one of my fun topics because I love talking about marketing. So let's welcome the show. Jonathan, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing super good. So glad to be here.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today. So let's get into this. So tell me a little bit about you. How did you get into working in this space?
So it started with a love for the underlying technology, and when I realized that our larger investor brand network was really an ideal bridge to connect a very large segment of the mainstream audiences to crypto and all the different things it allows that's not been allowed before, whether it's through technological challenges or just orders, whatever form they may take.
So what were you doing before this? How did you kind of get into this space in general, not just crypto, but, into the communications side of things? What was your background personally?
So personally, it was actually computer repair. So working with technology was a normal thing. And I was studying to go to a university, or I was planning to. It depends on how I guess I tell the story. There's so much that went on in that year, but essentially I decided not to go to the university because I was promoted to communications director. It was something that just kind of fell in my lap, but not because seeds weren't planted. I've been trading stocks since I was 15 and a half, and I reached out to an organization with plans to sell some data. But instead they offered me a job, and things just took off so fast. And so in a way, with so many different similarities between crypto and the equities market, it's really meshing that previous background with what I do in communications, investor relations, and public relations.
Well, it's interesting that you point out that, and I think this is something that's changing, at least from, when I was your age, is that, it used to be when I was growing up, is that people used to say you had to go to college to get a good job. And that mantra was beat into me, in the 80s and 90s when I was, a student. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that. And then when I was growing up, there was actually a stigma about doing anything that if you basically you couldn't be successful if you didn't have that little piece of paper. And it's interesting, as I got older, is I find that there's so many success stories, and in fact I find a lot more success stories don't come out of that typical academic route. And that's what I like hearing stories about, like what you're doing and your path a little bit, is that the quote unquote former traditional way to success really never was. And it's interesting to me, just more and more people I talk to, is that no, that's not the path I took, and it's worked out really well. So I'm glad we're starting to break that kind of stereotype down. So tell me a little bit about your project. What do you guys do?
Sure. So CryptoCurrencyWire is just one out of 40 plus brands. And depending on who we're servicing, we do different things. So I guess that's always a difficult question to answer. I usually find out a little bit about who's asking and then kind of go from there. But for the benefit of the show, it'd probably be a good idea to give a pretty broad overview. So starting with CryptoCurrencyWire, what we really do is allow crypto and blockchain brands to reach a lot of people without the challenges that you would face with traditional marketing like Facebook ads. A lot of those get shut down. With our underlying network wire, we can take a story and get it out on USA Today, MarketWatch, Dow Jones Factiva, lots of financial portals, but also lots of more consumer-oriented news portals like Apple News. So you're getting that direct reach to a very broad audience. But then on the crypto side, we have a very large following. We're the official newswire of many of the largest conferences in the US and Canada, and even in some international ones. So when we go to these conferences, if we're not helping the enthusiasts through, well, I don't know, again, it's so hard to explain everything that we do, but for those that want the latest news and don't want to depend on a reporter or get it, secondhand or late, we're great for getting that information to them very quickly, directly from those who are putting out the news, so it's word for word accurate, but then also for the innovators that have a message that they need to get out, they need that awareness to make sure their technology matters. We can put it in the hands of both crypto enthusiasts that will care about it, and then also inform the broader public, as many of these technologies would affect them as well.
So it sounds like you perform a pretty standard, public relations role. Do you think that you are a PR firm, or do you think you are in lieu of a PR firm? So say I was a crypto project, would you say that I would work with you if I wanted to do my own PR, or would you say that I would tell my PR company to go use you guys?
Yeah, the PR company would use us. The term that I've come up with is syndicated communications. So in addition to putting out the article in one place, it would go out to over 5,000 different destinations. It's syndicated. We don't focus so much on earned media, although we do have about 400 crypto-friendly journalists and reporters that we distribute the news to. They could cover it. It's not really that calculated effort with lots of personal relationships. And personally, that makes me feel a lot better because when you're selling a service without guaranteed results, traditionally you have a segment of unhappy customers because the story won't take hold. And particularly in crypto, it's getting harder and harder to get your story covered. But since we have pre-existing relationships with USA Today, Apple News, and those other organizations that I mentioned, it'll automatically post, not just when you have an announcement, but also in between your press releases. We can put out articles and editorial content to keep engagement and steady awareness in those different channels.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of crypto projects and blockchain projects have a hard time getting the word out through things like Facebook. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so Google, Facebook, many of them have outright crypto bans, or it's very tough to get approved for any kind of marketing surrounding one of those keywords. As soon as you add that to your ad, it trips off a filter and it may never go up.
Do you think they're going to change that, or do you think that's just going to be a permanent thing? It's kind of interesting to me with Libra and all that. That on one side they're talking about building their own blockchain project, but then they're banning advertisement from other blockchain projects. It's almost kind of hypocritical, but that's just me. Do you think that's going to change? Do you have any insights on that?
Well, I can only speculate like everyone else, but I feel for them because our government is putting so much pressure on them to moderate the ads that they approve. And it's almost easier just not to approve anyone than to really dig and figure out. Because at the end of the day, they have employees that are tasked with the vetting process. And, humans make mistakes. There's many that are new to their jobs. And it really creates a big liability for them. So I don't really see that changing anytime soon.
So what you're offering is really, instead of trying to, beat your head against the wall and try to trick or, persuade the major social platforms out there to approve ads, you're just saying, hey, just don't even bother, go around and use a different network altogether that will actually get you in front of the people you want to be in front of.
Yeah, that's right. And I always go back to, why are we doing digital marketing? And that is to create engagement. Now, we are very careful as far as ICO projects and other things. We don't just let anything come through the door. So, I always like to mention that. But Shoot, I forget what I was going to say. I just saw a phone call came in, so
Oh, it's
sorry.
okay. It's like, ICO projects and vetting and things like that. Do you think that kind of world is dead? Or are you guys still getting a lot of people, trying to do ICOs and market them?
Oh, we still get steady requests. We're very well known because of all the different conferences we go to, and that signage continues in a bunch of different forms. Even if you were to search for the conference's name, we would pop up, and so it's just a steady stream of people finding out about us and wondering if we'll work with them.
So conferences. So I organize a little conference as well. So what do you recommend for people, not blockchain projects, but conferences? How do you suggest they market?
So with conferences, obviously it's going to be easier to get a crypto enthusiast there, but you have to think beyond that if you really want to put on a strong show, especially because so many crypto and blockchain oriented conferences are going after the same target audience. And I guess that kind of reminds me with what I was going to say with digital marketing. To really be successful, you have to be in front of the same people over and over and over again, and ideally in a credible way. And we have a lot of different credible news organizations that are very well known that help with making people feel comfortable. So when you stretch out beyond your target market and they've never heard of you before, it sure helps a lot when they're discovering you on sites that they are familiar with and they trust.
So instead of like cryptobackalley.com, it's not quite as authoritative, I would guess, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying, yes.
So what would you say, a new crypto project, what would you recommend that they do first and foremost to get the word out?
So we talked about this on the panel at World CryptoCon just a little bit, and I know that I'm going to circle the question just a little bit, but I think it's important to have the right mindset before you even start. So I'm always looking at the restaurant that's coming to town. They do a lot of marketing before the ribbon gets cut. You want to build up suspense. You want people to be intrigued. Okay, what restaurant's about to open? They should get coupons in advance. All that stuff in preparation should be done really well. And then, of course, when they come, you don't want your website to be halfway made. You don't want coming soon sections. I understand that people want to look bigger than they are, and there are a lot of better ways of doing that than having a bunch of curtains hanging everywhere and saying coming soon. But what you really want is a coordinated effort. You want to reach the same people over and over again, but in different ways. If you're always calling them, that gets old real quick. If you're always emailing them, that gets old real quick. But what you really want to do is create a system of self-discovery and ongoing engagement to get the best results.
So going forward, you said that, like a PR firm might use you guys. So if someone comes to you and finds you first before the PR firm, do you recommend a PR firm to them? Or you just say, well, if you don't have one, you found us, that's good, and we'll work with you directly? Or do you prefer that a project might use a PR firm and act as a digital marketing agency, act as kind of an intermediary between you and them?
Great question. So we do work with a lot of PR firms. Like I said, we don't generally give recommendations unless we're asked. A lot of our clients prefer us because we don't have a long-term contract and the fees are quite low in comparison. So if you wanted to test something out, and this is one of the best things about CryptoCurrencyWire, it used to be with our other brands, it cost $25,000 a quarter just to get admission to the ball field. And most of our clients came through referrals and repeat business, so it really wasn't that difficult. Expanding into the cryptocurrency market and not working with a lot of those that do have lots and lots of funds, just because we want to see a few things shake out first, get better direction from the U.S. government. We're generally more cautious. Obviously, everybody takes risks with their business, but when it comes down to us versus a PR firm, with us, you're going to get that direct reach. We're not begging journalists. We're not depending on anyone to get that message out there. So a lot of times they just stick with our programs. They're putting out announcements whenever they want to reach beyond the choir. And, if they want to do more than that, we do have syndicated articles and other things. And that's generally where we start the discussion.
So you mentioned earlier talking about, when you do work with, earned media, that there's no guarantees, and typically, and what that means to people who don't understand marketing speak is that in a traditional situation where you're doing public relations, you'll hire a PR firm and they'll do pitches, and you pay these PR firms a retainer on a monthly basis, but there's generally no guarantee, and unfortunately, sometimes those PR firms get no hits, and you're out whatever that $5 or $10 grand a month or whatever they're charging you. And that's a challenge, and it's frustrating. And I think you kind of, mentioned this earlier, that sometimes you get disappointed clients when they're not getting any play and they're spending out a lot of money. So with you guys, with a CryptoCurrencyWire here, what can you guys offer? Is there an actual guarantee that they're going to get some hits?
Sure. So, whenever we're talking guarantees, I'm always hesitant because I always want to be telling the truth. And at the end of the day, if we're depending on Yahoo Finance or one of our downstream partners to post news, we can't really guarantee anything because we don't own them. However, I can point to the last 1,000 releases we've done where they posted it. Odds are they're going to post yours too. Unless the system goes down or this or that, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. So I always point back to historical results as to what to expect in the future. Managing expectations is part of keeping your clients, especially when you're doing your first blast. But just to kind of step through it, what happens first is the release goes out through their voice. Then we do a crypto news break, which is coming from our voice as a third party. We're simply recapping their story. We're doing a really short version of it with a link back to their release. That goes out to our thousands of syndication partners after it goes out to the other group of partners. And then we have our social media audiences that we continue to grow through the different conferences. And we have those 400 or so crypto-friendly journalists that we'll also send it to, which can just lead into further coverage after that for the next few days.
So this is always the big question with people working in the crypto world. Do you only take fiat or do you take crypto?
We most certainly take crypto, all the major ones. Coinbase is the platform that we use to do so. What we don't do is accept crypto in the project that we're working with.
That's kind of tricky. So
it can be, yes.
So that could go either way, I think, if you go and think about it, right? You're like, well, we'll work with you, but we don't like your project. Give us someone else's stuff. So I'd have to think about that one.
Okay, well, one thing I would say, just to add some context to it, we work with a lot of publicly traded companies, and some of them offer stock, and it really creates we're just going to say conflict of interest. But yeah, it introduces multiple different challenges. And of course, if you accept it, at some point you're going to sell it. I mean, even if it's 20 years from now, at some point you're going to sell it. And it just adds a lot of complications to the taxes and on and on and on.
Oh no, I'm just giving you a hard time. I remember during the ICO, hysteria when a project would get in their Ethereum or whatever for the ICO, and the few projects that were smart and actually cashed out to fiat before the crash actually are doing really well. And those people, those projects that did that were actually given a really hard time by the community, saying, oh, you don't believe in crypto and blah, blah, blah. But yet all the major projects that they hodled their crypto from their ICOs lost 90% of their value. So, I always just kind of think back to that when the community gets people, in a bind. So anyways, Jonathan, where can people find out more about working with you?
Well, probably the website would be best, CryptoCurrencyWire.com. If you want to check out the other brands and how we connect projects with investors, go to InvestorBrandNetwork.com. And if you're just looking for the latest news, Twitter is my favorite. You can find us at CryptoNetWire, all one word.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great holiday.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Rob McNealy program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcnealy.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.